Daily military reports reported. The militant group Al-Shabab has launched attacks on Somali military forces in Lower Shabelle region, Somali regional officials said. The attacks in the early hours of Saturday, around 4 a.m. local time, targeted military bases in the towns of Barire and Odhegel in southern Somalia. Al-Shabab claimed responsibility for the attacks. The forward operating bases are manned by the Somali military to protect several bridges along the Shabelle River that authorities say are key to keeping vehicles carrying explosives from entering Mogadishu. Attacks started off with suicide car bombs on both bases, followed by infantry attack, regional officials said. Speaking to VOA's Somali service, Abdulkadir Mohammed Nur Sidi, the governor of Lower Shabelle region, confirmed the attacks. Sidi said the militants fired mortars on the nearby villages of Sabiad and Anol. More mortar attacks were reported in the vicinity of Janale town. In recent years, the Somali National Army, in joint operations with forces of the Regional Peacekeeping Mission, the African Union Mission in Somalia, or AMISOM, has recaptured these villages that were previously under the control of Al-Shabab militants. The Saturday mortar attacks may have been an effort to disrupt possible reinforcements for government forces, Somali officials said. Government forces appear to have repulsed attack on Odhegel and defended a key bridge used by civilians in the military, but there was heavy fighting in Barire town, the officials added. Al-Shabab claimed to have overrun the Barire military base. A regional official, who did not want to be named because he was not allowed to speak to the media, said Barire bore the brunt of the attack. Two officials said the militants entered Barire military base without providing further details. The militants have now been pushed out of Barire, an official said. Odhegel and Barire are located 75 kilometers and 60 kilometers southwest of Somalia's capital city of Mogadishu, respectively. State-controlled national television has reported that government forces have foiled Al-Shabab attacks on Odhegel and Barire. Heavy losses have been inflicted on the militants, according to broadcasts on state TV. Somali Army Chief Brigadier General Odawa Yusuf Raga said, Somali Army killed dozens of terrorist militants including leaders after Shabab attacked SNA, Somali National Army, bases in Odhegel and Barire in Lower Shabelle region, on a Twitter post through the state-owned media, Somali National Television. The commander of Somalia's infantry forces, General Mohammed Talil Bihi, told the Associated Press that 9 Somali soldiers had been killed and 11 injured. Bihi said Somali forces had killed 76 of the Al-Shabab militants and had captured 10 others. Al-Shabab spokesman Sheikh Abdulaziz Al-Musab maintained the group had killed 47 Somali government fighters and confirmed on the group's Andalus radio station that the attacks began with suicide car bombs. Barire was recaptured from Al-Shabab in May 2019, while government forces retook Odhegel 3 months later. The capture and holding of the towns was hailed as a test for Somali National Army efforts to seize and hold areas recovered from the militants. SNA is being rebuilt to have the capacity to overtake security responsibilities from the 22,000 AMISOM peacekeeping forces who have been in the country since March 2007. In a separate but related incident, a suicide car bomb struck a military convoy traveling on the outskirts of Mogadishu on Saturday morning local time. The convoy was attacked in the vicinity of Lafal, about 20 kilometers from Mogadishu. The convoy was heading towards Odhegel and Barire to reinforce government forces, officials told VOA's Somali service. Police in Mogadishu said 4 youths and 1 child were killed in a second suicide bombing that occurred about 7 p.m. local time at a tea shop in downtown Mogadishu. Young people were having tea when the blast occurred, police said. No one immediately claimed responsibility for the attack. Government forces also seized a vehicle carrying weapons for the militants in Lafal area, an official said. The Somali military repelled twin attacks by Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shabab early on Saturday, inflicting heavy losses, the army chief said. Addressing reporters, General Odawa Yusuf Rage said that, thanks to our brave soldiers who knew about the tricks of the assailants, the militants were defeated and their wounded and dead bodies are strewn around. He added that the military was still pursuing the attackers. What do we know about the attacks? The attackers used car bombs before trying to storm the military bases located some 100 kilometers, 60 miles, from the capital, Mogadishu. Various military officials gave differing death tolls, with the military initially saying that 19 militants were killed in both locations. Later, a senior military official told media that the soldiers killed 45 jihadists during the attacks. several of the soldiers were also killed. In Odhigel, where the larger of the two bases is located, witnesses said the attackers failed to breach the facility despite nearly an hour of fighting. I saw several dead bodies of the Shabab gunmen near the camp where the fighting occurred. The Somali soldiers paraded these bodies after the fighting, town resident Muhammad Ali told the AFP news agency. In Barire, witnesses said the militants managed to enter the camp and torch some of the military supplies. Separately, the group said it has captured military vehicles and supplies in the attacks. What is Al-Shabab? Al-Shabab was founded between 2004 and 2006, and claims to fight for an Islamic theocracy in the Horn of Africa. They are believed to have ties to other major terror groups such as Al-Qaeda and Boko Haram. While an African Union-led offensive pushed them out of Mogadishu in 2011, they have continued to launch bombing attacks and raids in Somalia and Kenya. Al-Shabab remains capable of carrying out massive attacks in Somalia and surrounding countries despite a long-running African Union offensive against the Islamist group. Al-Shabab, or the Youth, is an Islamist insurgent group based in Somalia. It once held sway over the capital of Mogadishu and large portions of the Somali countryside, but in recent years an African Union-led military campaign has pushed it back from major population centers. However, the insurgency remains the principal security challenge in war-torn Somalia, and continues to mount lethal attacks against Western forces and civilians in the region. One of the most impoverished countries in the world, Somalia has seen militant groups come and go in its decades of political upheaval. Analysts say the forerunner of Al-Shabab, and the incubator for many of its leaders, was Al-Ittihad al-Islami, AIAI, or Unity of Islam, a militant Salafi group that peaked in the 1990s, after the fall of Said Barre's 1969-1991 regime in the outbreak of civil war. AIAI's core was a band of Middle East-educated Somali extremists that was partly funded and armed by Al-Qaeda's chief, Osama bin Laden. In the early 2000s, a rift developed between AIAI's old guard, which had decided to create a political front, and younger members, who sought the establishment of a Greater Somalia, under fundamentalist Islamic rule.